Welcome to the With Ingram series of podcasts. I'm Philip Ingram. This is Season 2, Episode 4, and today I'm talking to Ellie Hurst from Advent IM. A fascinating discussion. Warning, you might actually learn something. Well, I'm sitting in the Hilton Metropole at the NEC with a lovely lady, Ellie Hurst, from a company called Advent IM. I'll let her introduce herself in a minute, but today we're going to talk about cybersecurity, infosec, business, and anything we can get to. My only complaint is I've come out to Security 20 at the NEC today and I did not get a bacon roll. So there's been no bacon harmed in the production of this podcast.
This is
Ellie,
bacon-free.
This is a bacon-free zone. Ellie, welcome to the With Ingram series of podcasts. Can you, for the listeners out there, introduce yourself and say how you fit into all of this?
Okay. I'm Head of Communications and Media for Advent IM, member of CISEC and also the Security Institute. And we have a stand here today at Security 20 talking about some of our physical security offerings, but we're a holistic security consultancy, so we work across the board, and that's basically me.
So working across the board, you touch cyber, you touch infosec, you touch physical security,
yes.
and everything else.
Yes.
Well, and you're interacting with industry on a daily basis.
Yes.
How much does industry get security? How much does the people who are at C-suite, sitting on the boards, who are the decision makers, really get security?
Well, it's an average of averages, but I would say some get it absolutely brilliantly, and some are nailing it. They're building blended, multi-skilled security teams that can work across the board, a variety of disciplines, across infosec and physical security. But there are plenty that kind of want to do everything from arm's length. They don't really want to engage with their security professionals. I think if they can buy a bit of kit that's going to do it for them, they'd much rather do that than actually, go in their minds down to the basement and have the conversation with the geeks and warlocks that live down there. In some cases, can't blame them, but in others, I think, they're doing their businesses a huge disservice because actually, a fish rots from the head down, as the Chinese very accurately say. And so the behaviours and culture that is built at that level is what you'll see reflected throughout the rest of the organisation. And casual disinterest in security, when it starts at that level, that can have disastrous effects throughout the rest of the organisation. So I think the C-suite need to be far more engaged than they are in general. I can well accept that there are those that do it brilliantly. Many CISOs don't actually sit on the board, so they have a C-suite title, but they don't actually sit on the board. And the fault for that, I think, is spread equally between both camps. That security needs to up its game, certainly in the way it communicates with its colleagues in the rest of the business, and that will in turn draw more interest and interaction from the rest of the business, and hopefully the engagement of the senior board where it needs to actually be.
Now, we'll get on to communications in a minute, but before we do that, one of the issues that I'm seeing with C-suites and all the rest of it is the measurement of success for the security professionals is nothing happens. Mm-hmm. So how do you translate that into business expenditure and business effort terms to get those skeptical CEOs or managing directors to actually focus and concentrate on security and realise that actually nothing happens is a good thing?
Well, this is a really tricky one, Phil, because unfortunately being really, really lucky looks very similar to being really, really good. And so this is going to continue to be a problem to try and demonstrate return on investment in security. That's always going to be hard because, as you say, it's a bit like many other unsung heroes in business. If you're doing it really well, either everyone thinks it's really easy, like marketing, or or they just assume that everything's fine and they don't need to worry about it. Unfortunately, it takes usually a serious incident to occur before people start to take it really seriously, or something happens in their supply chain. If you look at what's happened over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years, the majority of serious breach has actually come through third-party breach, and so it's forcing businesses to actually look at their supply chain ecosystem to try and look at risk, to try and risk what's sitting in their ecosystem and the threat that it could potentially have on them. So those businesses that have embraced things like ISO 27001, for instance, this is old news to them because they've already been doing this for quite some time. But for a lot of businesses, it's such a convoluted and complex area that it's something that they kind of shy away from. And again, it will mean more engagement with the warlocks and demons that live in the dungeon. So, that's to be avoided at all costs.
But getting into the warlocks and demons and the dungeons and the security professionals, hey, you lot out there, if you're a warlock and demon, that can be a good thing. If you're not a warlock and demon, that can also be a good thing. But starting to look at them, do you think actually security professionals understand enough about business and how they fit in and can communicate in the way that they need to properly engage with that higher level of management?
I think one of the things that the Workforce Survey of 2018 came out with was, it was a global survey, and it looked at what employers and recruiters were looking for in terms of security and infosec skills and requirements. And they basically said, look, technical skills, this is a given. Of course we expect technical skills, but what we need are technical skills in people who can communicate with our business, which would indicate to me that actually this is quite a rare breed. And there's a reason why it's a rare breed, and if you take a casual glance at infosec Twitter, you'll start to see why, because infosec is very good at communicating with itself and not quite so good at communicating in the broader sense. And I'm generalising massively, so everyone who's getting upset with me right now, just calm down, because I'm probably not talking about you. But if you take, for example, the whole scale Twitter pylon that happened last week about the West Midlands Police Cyber Roku poster that went up in a school in Walsall, it profoundly depressed me watching my community, the community that I love, get so malicious and nasty and more seriously unhelpful to trying to do something really good. They had an opportunity to do something good, and they chose to look as if they were defensive and insecure and had a chip on their shoulder, and that depressed me. Yes, I know you can say we could do it better, but be part of being the better then in that case, and find a better way to communicate it, because it just made us look petty and small-minded and unhelpful, and I don't want to see that. We've got a skills gap, right? We know that we have a skills gap, and there are lots and lots of reasons for that I'm not going to go into now, but this is where we are. We need to recruit more diverse people of all sorts into our security community, but is this the way that we're going to attract them? Because business and people potentially looking at that career themselves are all going to be looking at this kind of behaviour and wondering, okay, so we're being told that infosec wants to let's say engage with school-age children now to try and build a career path to get them into security. You're a parent looking at that kind of pylon and thinking, is that really what I want my kid to get involved with? You're a marketer who's maybe interested in the growing area of MarSec, which is where effectively I work. Is that so? I'm looking at that, and 2 days before the Cyber Roku pylon, there was one on marketing. The marketing one. And I was so disappointed to see people that I knew quite well actually sticking the boot in really horribly to my profession, which is an established profession and has an established professional career path. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry if you don't like us, but you're not going to attract people in who can effectively help you with communication, who want to support you in communicating with your businesses. Because if you don't have those skills, if you have the technical skills and not the communication skills, then you need to be going to your communications team to say, look, can you help me with it? I need to do this presentation to the board, or I'm building this training pack, or whatever it is. You need your communications people to help you do that. And you're not going to engage, they're not going to want to engage with you if they think, well, actually, I don't see why I should, because clearly you've got no respect for me whatsoever.
Yes, I remember watching the Twitter tirade against West Midlands Regional Organised Crime Unit, and I was wondering what was going on. The poster to me came across as brilliant, and then the tirade made me think through why people were getting upset, and I realised that the majority of those that were complaining about it or trying to undermine it. We're thinking of it from their perspective, not from the target audience of the poster's perspective. So I can't remember the tools that they put up on it, but if you've got a 12-year-old child who doesn't come from a technical family, who's got the Tor browser and they're constant in the Tor browser looking at different things on their computer, it is a good thing to open a conversation with and go, explain what this is about and what's going on, which is the message that I got looking at it. Absolutely. Which, Rocky, we're trying to put out. Absolutely. Not the knock that, you should be patting the individual in the back because they're brilliant infosec professionals, they understand what's going on. Geeks, it's great for geeks to have all of this on their computers and everything else, and it's perfectly normal. But for the average child that's out there, who the most complex thing is the latest PS2 or PS3, I don't know where they are, I'm showing my age now, game that's sitting there, to have some of these other tools that let you get into different areas of the internet that have got a lot of unsavoury stuff in there, is something to not criticise but to open a conversation about.
I just think anything that opens a dialogue, Phil, anything that opens a dialogue is really, really important. And you know what? There's something else that we've forgotten. Maybe our kids could be teaching us something. Yeah. There's also that. We can assume that we know everything and that we're very, very clever, but actually kids have got a lot to teach us, and I think in this case, most definitely so.
Well, and in that, it's interesting. I talk about digital exposure a lot, and people of our sort of generation, we understand perfectly about physical exposure. We close our curtains in the house at night. We close the front door. We lock it at certain times. You lock your car. You screen things off whenever you're doing stuff. You don't do stuff in the local supermarket that you might do at home. However, when it comes to the digital world, people forget about that. They don't seem to do it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a blind spot, and that takes us back to business actually, because it's kind of like if something gets so big and unwieldy and horrible that you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to engage with it, you don't want to. Hence, we've got this arm's length approach to security from business leaders, just wanting to let security teams go and do whatever it is that they want to do, and it's almost like a petri dish now. And I really feel as a communicator and as a communicator in security, I feel very passionately that we really need to kind of smash that a little bit. We need to break it apart. We need to start a much more inclusive dialogue, and we need people in our infosec community that actually want to do that don't behave in that way, that don't want to engage in that kind of activity. When I did a workshop up at York in the cybersecurity practitioners event a couple of years ago, and I published a white paper on my findings, which was literally just what the people in the room actually said to me. And one of the things that they talked about was that they were concerned about the perception of infosec in general in business, how people perceived their profession. And the recent events make me think that we haven't really moved on very much from that point, and that maybe we aren't helping ourselves. Because if it was something that we're worried about, then we really need to worry about that wholesale. The whole of our sector needs to think about that, especially as one of the other things that came out in my findings was that they felt it was really, really urgent that we start engaging with school-aged children, and I wholeheartedly agree. But then we have to make ourselves an environment that is attractive to the parents and the children who are going to want to be a part of that community, because as we've established, it's not just about technical skills, it's about a whole range of other things. The softer skills that perhaps have not previously been prized that highly are becoming more and more important. Business is recognising it, because if you look at the research that Osterman did about 3 years ago, they looked at how the C-suite perceived security and how security perceived C-suite. And it was very much a case of never the twain shall meet. It was very much a case of, the board were saying, we don't understand the reports that we get. We don't understand the presentations that they're giving us. It's much too technical, and so we don't engage with that. But then the next question is, so do you understand? Are you able to take action upon the? Oh yeah, it's fine, because there's an unwillingness to admit that they don't understand to their security people what it is that they've been given. They can't take action upon it. Then that also means that funding is always going to be a problem. because because security aren't able to adequately to communicate, and as we've already established, demonstrate return on investment in security is very, very hard. So, there are all sorts of fences to be built, that knock down, and bridges to be built there. But also the perception back in the same piece of research from the security professionals back to the board, where they're saying, we know that they don't understand, but they won't tell us what it is that they want. So we don't know how to change what it is that we're doing to show them what it is that they need. And it just feels like there's this chasm in between, and it's just so frustrating.
But it's interesting. So we've got a percentage of decision makers in business who don't quite understand, can't articulate their requirements. We've got a percentage of professionals that are out there who are fixated on the geeky stuff and don't understand how to articulate what they can do, what they should be doing, the risks and all the rest into business. And the bit that's getting wrong between them is this communications piece. And then the communications going outside. How do we fix it?
We're not going to solve that in 4 minutes, Phil. I'll tell you that now. I think both sides actually engaging with their communications professionals is a good place to start, because what it did bring out to me was a message of hope in some regards, because it did indicate that they did actually want to. Both groups of people did actually want to. It was just a case of they weren't quite sure how to do it without losing face, because face is obviously very important to both groups of people. Kudos. Very, very important to both groups of people. So, somewhere the solution somewhere is in the communication field, I feel. It's somewhere in there.
Well, as we're both communications professionals, I think you're finishing on the you need to talk to your communications professionals and seek a little bit of advice is a good place to sort of end this podcast. Ellie, it's been a real pleasure talking to you as ever.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Phil.
And as a final note, the organisers of Security 2020 did deliver me a bacon sandwich. So well done, Roy Cooper and the team.